I'm Peter Haddock and I'm here at the Supply Chain Sustainability School conference in Coventry. Julia, I have just listened to you on stage here talking for Willmott Dixon, where you have a very big title. I'm going to let you explain that, about the whole element of what you've done as a tier one contractor to meet some of the carbon and sustainability goals. So first of all, tell everyone what your big title is, and then we'll explain what you've talked about that is relevant to my audience.
So my title now is Chief Sustainability and Compliance Officer. So obviously I look after sustainability, but the compliance piece now is health, safety, environment and quality. It's so important now, given the Building Safety Act and so forth.
So you've been a big supporter personally, and so Willmott Dixon, of the whole Supply Chain Sustainability School setup, right? You know, and you were one of the original contractors that supported it. Now that was some time ago now, and today you've talked about actually how you as a contractor are requiring a lot more information, data and support for the supply chain that deliver projects to you when it comes to carbon and the environment. So tell me a little bit about the journey that you've been on, but also where we are now and what, if you want to work with Willmott Dixon, people have to think about doing.
Well, as you say, it's been a heck of a journey, and you know, when I joined the industry and when the school started 12 years ago, we were focused on our own emissions. So what we were spending on diesel, electricity, travel to deliver the work that we do. And that's the easy bit. As I said, 99% of our emissions, and true of many, certainly tier ones in this sector, is the ripples you create are much larger. And for us, that was 99 times more. And we had that realisation in about 2016. And we realised that our scope, my scope 3 is a supply chain partners scope 1 and 2. Yep. So there's a real opportunity for us to work with those, well, and prioritise. I always prioritise because you can't eat an elephant all in one go. You've got Correct. To eat it a burger at a time. Yeah. What are those, who are those supply chain partners or those trades that we need to work with first to get us some momentum? And one of the things we did back in 2016, we put a shout out to our supply chain and said, we want to help you to help us. Yeah. And we were underwhelmed by the response, actually. Really? Not only 3 or 4 supply chain partners said, yeah, we'll have some free help. Mm-hmm. What was very interesting, we went into their businesses, we looked at what they were spending on fuel, electricity, the vehicles they were using, so on and so forth. Not brains of a bishop stuff. You know, even as recent as 2019, 90-odd% of SMEs didn't know what they were spending on fuel. Hopefully that's changed now with the energy crisis. But we went into these businesses and we identified carbon and cost savings. Remember, this was pre-Ukraine, of 30 to 40%. And they were able to implement fairly easily, no major capital investment, that type of thing, savings of 20 to 30%. And one of those partners that worked with us in those early days was a groundworks contractor, which was McDermott, so will be known to many of your listeners.
Yeah, and what's really interesting about that is, you know, groundworks was in the top tier of the impacts to you and your business.
Absolutely.
And so since then, you know, there's some big figures there, over £100,000 savings straight away. And since then, you've worked with other groundwork suppliers, and we've had one on the panel here today as well. But what was interesting for me is you've kind of got the low-hanging fruit. You know, the easy work has been done. And now we're talking about how we can transition the earthwork sector away from the diesel to the electric, but also how we can actually enable skills. And that's what the school is all about, people learning for what the next elements are, which is going to be the harder 1% from the 20%, isn't it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say the work is done. We've identified the problems. Yep. And I think the reason our sector is so, we're slow to change because we're made up of so many component parts. There's so many different supply chain partners across the country. So there are some who are further on the journey than others. And I think, you know, we've got a lot of the tech already that we need to be able to do these things. You know, the key message I put out to our business early doors was, you know, get off diesel, yep. Get onto electricity. obviously for big machinery and battery technology, that's a challenge at the moment, but I think we will see more of that emerging. There is more innovation happening in terms of hydrogen. But my message would be, don't wait for tech. I think there's a lot you can do in terms of behaviour change. So we were talking earlier about, actually most cabs in those types of big machinery excavators, you don't need to leave the engine idling. There is generally a button you can press to enable cab heating. So that education, using the tools that are already at your disposal and understanding, bringing your workforce with you, they will have ideas. They'll know what works well. They'll know what is wasteful. And actually, if it's wasteful in terms of their time or your money, it's wasteful in terms of carbon as well. So it's use all the talents available to you, and just get started. Make some changes. Don't wait.
And we've seen how technology for 3D machine control from the likes of Leica Geosystems has actually come into play and is now sort of mandated on big projects, but also is rolling out to the sort of commercial space and the warehouse space, but also even the house building sector is now using technologies. But you talked again on the stage about the kind of information you want, and you made a big point, and everybody's struggling with this, that says, let's standardize that data that comes in so that one contractor doesn't want one thing, another contractor doesn't want another thing, so that we can actually understand what the utilization, the idle time drops, the increase in productivity actually mean across the board. That's really important, and that capability is happening, isn't it, because of the school now?
Well, it is, and I think there are two aspects. My biggest frustration is in terms of the goods and the products that we install in our buildings. But coming back to more around big machinery and groundworks, I think there are two elements to this. In terms of our corporate reporting and demonstrating, our statutory requirements in annual reports and accounts and so forth, we can generally get that if you let us know the fuel you've used. So what is your scope 1 and 2? And big shout out to the Supply Chain School Carbon Portal.
Yep.
I was a big fan of that because I'm passionate about not pushing the burden down on our supply chain partners. So we've created this portal. So if you know what you've spent a year, your accountants will know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And you'll have bills and you'll be able to pull that information together. Log on to the portal, put it in there. And the other key bit of information is then divide your turnover across the customers that you work for, whether that be Willmott Dixon or Kier or Scanscore or other Morgan Sindall, other tier ones. And we will take, it's proxy, it's not absolutely accurate, but that's where we have to get over ourselves a little bit. We're okay with that. Put in your one set of numbers for your business for the year. Tell us how it's split. We'll do the calculations in the background. We'll get what we need. And you will also get the ability to report once as a minimum, or you may actually find that gives you insight as to where your opportunities are. And, I'm a big fan of Pareto. 80% of the opportunity comes from 20% of the action. So really good place to start. Yeah,
and I believe that our sector, the earthworks sector, it has huge opportunities to make that carbon transition, but also to help those little tiny 1% in the equipment you use and the changes and the trenches that you dig to the right level means less material is wasted and things like that. We talked about that today as well. But the other thing, folks, that is really sort of surprising for me is there is a now proliferation of dashboards that you're using and everybody else is using. So it makes it easier if you can feed into the dashboards and into that information rather than the sort of spreadsheet sort of society that we've been utilising all of that sort of potential error for the human, putting 1 instead of 10 in, for example, on that kind of process, isn't it?
Well, I think there are two sides to this coin. So on site, having a dashboard provided by your temporary electric supplier or your mobile plant is really helpful because it's real time.
Correct.
It's there, you can see it. What's being used now, what power is it drawing, that doesn't look right, that looks different to yesterday, what's different? So it enables you to take immediate action. In terms of the big data, so for corporate reporting, my team are really keen on that sort of spreadsheet data,
Right.
those numbers, those
Yeah.
the ability to bring all of that in so that we can add it up and display it in our own dashboards.
Yeah.
So there is a proliferation of dashboards, but I think having that conversation with what information do you require from us? So on sites, on projects, in buildings, you may want a real-time dashboard. For corporate reporting, it's actually the most important is I've just talked about the carbon portal, but also the cost data in your invoicing, and be very clear on your invoice. What have you spent on what?
Yep.
Because we need to get, and this is the thing that's keeping me up at night, we need to be able to interrogate that package information now on all of our supply chain partners to say, what is it you supplied, so that we can interrogate that and say, well, we know that contributes so many tons of coal, kilograms of carbon towards our scope 3 emissions. And it is complicated and it is burdensome. If we can automate it off things you already do, reduces the burden on supply chain partners, but it also then enables us to meet our statutory obligations in terms of things like the Science-Based Targets Initiative.
So, folks, there's a lot going on. However, what I got from you today was a real passion to say, we are here as a Tier 1 contractor, not to dictate, but to help. So ask us for help. And, like you did in 2016, now working a lot more with the supply chain since that time, you're able to help people do it. And I think what's also really important is when you talked about the fact that you want to work in the locality that you're working with more SMEs in that area, so that you can create jobs in the communities in which you're serving, whether it be a big project or a long-term project. And that is really, really important, folks, that we can share the wealth as such around, but the locality of people and that sort of more social impact that we have when we're builders and when we're doing different projects.
And you might do it for those reasons, but actually what you create is a legacy of skills.
Correct.
And we've, I made a bit of a joke about it. Ever since I've worked in the industry, we've had a skills gap of about 200,000 people. Mm-hmm. We need to attract people and we need to give them experience. If we can do that in local economies and bring to life local communities, we can leave that positive legacy. They might not work on with us or one of our jobs in the future, but actually if they can go on and work for others and bring others in, that's the future of our industry, and that's really what we need to invest in.
So people always first, folks, but also we've talked a bit about electricity. We've talked a bit about hydrogen. It's all on your scope moving forward. It might take some time, but believe me, when you put in the hard yards now, you're going to be actually grabbing those supply chain partners that have done the work rather than the ones that are waiting for something to happen. So that's the real message from today, isn't it?
It is. I mean, don't wait to be perfect. If you don't know, you want help, reach out. The school's got some tremendous resources. We've put some in there as well. If you work with Willmott Dixon, we will be working with you to develop your own carbon plans. It'll help make your business more sustainable and reduce your overheads. Your scope 1 and 2 is my scope 3. So what benefits you benefits me. Why wouldn't we collaborate and work in partnership?
Fantastic to talk to you today, and thanks for your time. Cheers.